The Brooklyn Nine, a novel in 9 innings by Alan Gratz. Third inning, A Ballad of the Republic. Brooklyn, New York, 1894. Chapter 1. "I'm Cap Anson," one boy called. "I'm Oyster Burns," said another. The boys had rechristened Pigtown the Polo Grounds, and now they were giving themselves upgrades by pretending to be their favorite players. "I'm Fred Pfeffer," Tommy Collum said. "Fred Pfeffer," sang Joseph, the biggest of the boys. "With him it's always Fred Pfeffer. He's like an L conductor. Tickets, please, tickets, where's your tickets? Tickets." Same thing, over and over. They all had a laugh. On the edge of the group, Arnold Schneider laughed with them. "I'll be King Kelly," he said. "King Kelly?" Joseph said. "Does he even play anymore?" "He played for the New York Giants last year," Arnold said. "He turned a triple play against Brooklyn." "Yeah, so did my gran," Joseph said. The boys all had another laugh. "All right, me and George choose up sides." One by one, all the boys were chosen by the captains. All the boys but Arnold. He was the smallest and worst player there, and he knew it. But he still watched the captains, hoping one of them would take him today. "You bring that good bat, Arnie?" Joseph asked. "No, that bat's my dad's. He got it in the war. Yeah, we know. You want to play? You bring that bat next time." "But with me, the teams are even," Arnold said. "He's right," said George. Arnold's heart leaped. "Here, catch," George said. He threw the ball to Arnold, but it was too far over his head. Another boy caught it and threw it back. "Here you go, Arnie." The ball sailed over his head again. And again. Arnold knew this game. They were playing keep away. He stopped trying to catch the ball and glared at them. His hands clenched and his fists shaking. "Boatlickers," he said. "Ooh," Joseph laughed. "I'm so scared." Arnold wanted to cry, but he would never do that again. Not in front of the boys. Instead, he walked away as fast as he could. "Goodbye, King Kelly," Joseph taunted. And Arnold broke into a run. When Arnold finally slowed down to wipe the tears off his face, he realized he had run halfway up Bedford Avenue. He was in the Eastern District with the vaudeville theaters. He passed Hyde and Bayman's and the Empire Theater, stopping to read the placards outside announcing the nightly acts. Above him, the Broadway Brooklyn line rattled by on its elevated platform, and he watched as ladies and gentlemen in their fine clothes went scurrying for shop awnings to escape the soot and smoke that drifted down from the train. Electric lights hummed at the entrance of the Gaiety Theater, and a name on the board outside caught Arnold's eyes as he passed. He rushed back to read the sign. "Appearing all this week, O'Dowd's Neighbors, featuring Weber and Field, Dutch Knockabouts, Haynes and Vidocq, Backtalkers, the Bratz Brothers, Acrobats, John LeClaire, Balancer and Juggler, Drummond and Tolley, Musicians, Alice Raymond, Cornet Player, Mike King Kelly, Famed Baseballer, William Wheatman, Maker of Faces." Mike King Kelly, famed baseballer? Arnold couldn't believe it. King Kelly? Here in Brooklyn? On the vaudeville stage? He rushed to the door to look inside, but he only saw the lobby. The doorman eyed him, and he rushed back to the sign. Mike King Kelly, famed baseballer. Why had they buried him so far down the list of performers? Wouldn't he be the star attraction? Admission was 50 cents, and Arnold didn't have to pad his pockets to know he didn't have enough coins. There was no chance his parents would give him money for a vaudeville show either. They wouldn't even like that he'd been in the theater district. Music and laughter trickled out of the Gaiety Theater. The show had already started. Arnold had to see King Kelly. There was only one thing for it. He'd have to sneak in. A group of young men and their ladies came strutting down the lane and stopped to consider the playbill. They would be perfect. Arnold tried to watch them without being obvious about it, silently willing them to decide to take in the show. A well-timed outburst of laughter sold them on the matter, and they moved as one toward the doorway where their men made a great show of paying their ladies' way in. Being on the short end of 10, Arnold slipped around them, out of sight of the ticket seller, and ducked inside. The theater was little more than half full, and Arnold slunk down a side aisle and slid into a seat. He waited for someone to point a finger, to grab him by the shoulder, but no one seemed to have noticed he'd snuck in, and he relaxed. King Kelly wasn't on the stage now anyway. It was an acrobat routine with trained tumblers. After that came a man and a woman who played violins, then a face contortionist who made Arnold laugh, and a comedian who did not. He began to fear he had missed King Kelly entirely when the master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage to announce the next act. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC said, "the Gaiety Theatre is now proud to present that legendary rascal of Round Ball, that scoundrel of Swat, that dandy of the Diamond, Mr. Mike King Kelly in He Would Be an Actor or The Ball Player's Revenge." King Kelly pranced out onto the stage with a glass of beer in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. It was him, sure enough. He wore the blue and white uniform of the Boston Bean Eaters and a bright red scarf tied under his collar. His dark black hair was smoothed back under his white cap, and his big bushy mustache had just a hint of curl at the ends. Kelly drew a polite smattering of applause, and Arnold leaned forward in his seat. It's great to be back. It's great to be here in Brooklyn," Kelly said, his Irish accent rolling off his tongue. "Why, it was here when your very own Brooklyn bridegrooms that I robbed Monty Ward of a home run. I remember that day very clearly," he said, settling into a story he'd clearly told many times. "'Twas getting on toward dusk when Monty stepped to the plate, and we all knew the umpire would soon call the game on account of darkness. But the score was tied 2 apiece, you see, and the grooms had something cooking with 2 outs in the 9th. Pickney and O'Brien stood on 2nd and 3rd, and a hit of any kind would send us packing back to Beantown." Kelly took a long draw off his beer, but not so long as to lose the audience. "Now, it's gotten so dark, I can hardly see Clarkson on the mound, let alone the batter, but I hear the crack of the bat and see the infielders turn, and I know a scorching sphere is headed my way. I go back into the big, vast, swirling darkness of Eastern Park. You lot have been there, so you know what I mean. And I reach out as high as I can, and I jump as high as I can," Kelly said, pantomiming the catch as best he could with his beer in lieu of a glove. "And I come down with me hand raised high in the twilight, dashing the hopes of the Brooklyn faithful." The hometown crowd gave a good-natured boo, and he smiled. "Out number 3, yells the ump. Game called on account of darkness. So I run back to the dugout with me glove closed tight, and our manager, old Frank Selly, comes forward with the rest of the boys to congratulate me. 'Kel,' says he, 'that was the finest catch I've ever yet seen.' 'And you still haven't,' says I, and I opened my glove. There wasn't a thing in it. The ball was a mile over me head." What a marvelous trick! Arnold clapped himself silly, and the audience roared with laughter. Kelly saluted them all with his beer. "Tell us about the $10,000 transfer," someone yelled. "What'd you do with all that money?" called another. "I ate strawberries and ice cream every day," Kelly said with a grin. "Yeah, and the bartenders got the rest," someone heckled. Kelly told a few more stories from his playing days, then recited Casey at the bat, changing out Mighty Casey's name for his own. When he was finished, he left the stage to the sound of the house band playing "Slide, Kelly, Slide," and great applause. Not even the promise of the Salambos, fire handlers from Brazil, could keep Arnold in his seat. He dashed down the aisle and out of the theater, turning down the side alley where he hoped King Kelly would emerge. He guessed the wrong alley, though, and by the time he had run around to the other side, King Kelly and another man were already halfway to the street. "Mr. Kelly," Arnold called. King, how about an autograph?" Kelly stopped and turned, smiling magnificently. "One of me fans, Hiroshi," he said to the other man. Arnold slid to a stop in front of them, and he could see now Kelly was accompanied by an Oriental, a Chinaman or some such, dressed in brightly colored silks and sporting a braided ponytail like a girl might wear. There was something crawling on the man's right shoulder, and Arnold jumped in fright as a black monkey leaped from the Oriental onto Kelly's back. "Me gentleman's gentleman," Kelly said. "Me valet Hiroshi. Now, laddie, what's your name?" Arnold, he said. Arnold Schneider. Right now, let's see here. He searched the pockets of his coat. Aha, here's me fountain pen, then. What have you got for me to sign, Arthur? Arnold's heart sank. Here was King Kelly before him, ready to sign his famous autograph, and Arnold had nothing in his pocket but 3 pennies and a bit of fluff. Now the boys at Pigtown would never believe him. It's Arnold, sir, and I'm sorry, but I don't... Arnold stopped. Kelly suddenly had the most peculiar look on his face, like he had fallen asleep with his eyes open. The ball-player's face lost all expression, and his body began to sway. Mr. Kelly, are you all right? Hiroshi tried to catch Kelly before he fell, but it was too late. The monkey jumped from the sinking ship, and King Kelly dove headlong into the gutter, splashing face first into the muck. Arnold rushed to Kelly's side and tried to turn him over. What's happened? What should I do? Should I go for a doctor? Arnold asked. He looked up at Hiroshi's blank face and realized he probably didn't understand a word Arnold was saying. I'm sorry, Arnold said loudly. No, speak, Chinaman. Hiroshi sighed. I'm Japanese, he said with a distinct New England accent. And no, he doesn't need a wagon. He needs a paddy wagon. King Kelly is drunk.